I remember the sound before I remember the sight. The wind howled like a wounded beast, tearing through the prairie with a force that rattled the windows of my cabin and shook my very bones. I had been in labor for hours already, clutching the wooden bed frame, sweat slicking my brow despite the bitter cold seeping through every crack of the room. My husband, James, had gone to fetch the doctor before dawn, but by nightfall, neither of them had returned. The storm had swallowed the world whole. Snow whipped across the land so fiercely I couldn't see more than a few feet outside the window. The old lantern flickered beside me, casting trembling shadows against the log walls, and I whispered to the child inside me, begging them to wait, begging them not to come just yet. But nature has never cared much for our pleas. A bolt of pain ripped through me then, sharp and merciless. I cried out, my voice drowned beneath the roar of the blizzard. Fear clawed at my chest, fear of being alone, fear of death, fear of leaving this world without ever holding the child I had prayed for. That's when I heard it. A knock. Hard, sure, deliberate. I froze, every muscle trembling. Who could be out there in such a storm when the door creaked open, snow gusted in around a tall figure wrapped in a deerskin cloak, dark hair tangled with ice, eyes sharp as flint beneath heavy brows. An Apache. I had heard stories of them, some cruel, some kind, but stories meant little when the man stood before me, snow melting from his shoulders onto my floor. My heart pounded, torn between fear and desperate relief. He spoke in low English, halting but firm. Storm bad. You, alone. I nodded, clutching my belly. The pain was coming faster now, leaving me breathless. He took one step forward, scanning the room, then fixed his gaze on me as though measuring the truth of my need. I help, he said simply. And in that moment, I had no choice but to believe him. He moved with surprising gentleness for a man who looked carved from stone. He stirred the fire higher, laid his bow and quiver aside, and spread blankets near the hearth. He found my bucket and melted snow over the flames, heating water. His hands were steady, practical, but his eyes were something else. They never lingered too long on me, as though he respected a boundary I hadn't spoken, but they carried a weight I had not seen in many men, a weight of loss, perhaps, or understanding. When the pain seized me again, he knelt by the bedside, his voice low, guiding me through the storm of my body. Breathe, he said. Slow. You strong. Child strong. Each time I thought I would break, his words anchored me. He didn't flinch at my cries, nor shy away from the rawness of birth. He was there, steady as the earth beneath us, while the tempest raged outside. Hours passed in a blur of agony and determination. The world shrank to the crackle of fire, the pounding of wind, and his voice deep, calm, certain, and then, at last, a cry cut through the storm. My baby's cry. Tears blurred my vision as he wrapped the tiny form in a clean cloth he had torn from his own garment. He placed the child in my arms with a reverence that made my heart ache. Boy, he whispered. I looked down at my son, red-faced, wailing, perfect, and then back at the Apache kneeling before me. Thank you, I choked out, though the words felt small against the magnitude of what he had done. He only nodded, eyes softening as though he, too, felt the sacredness of the moment. The storm did not let up for 2 more days. In that time, he stayed. He cared for the fire, chopped wood from my dwindling stack, prepared food from what little I had. He never asked for anything, never crossed a line, yet he filled the cabin with a quiet strength I hadn't realized I needed. I learned his name in fragments. Tayan, he said one evening, tapping his chest. Tayan, I repeated, the syllables rough in my mouth. He gave a faint smile, as though unused to hearing it spoken so gently. He told me little else, only that he was traveling alone, that the storm had caught him far from his people. His English was broken, yet his meaning always clear. Sometimes, when I rocked my baby to sleep, I caught him watching the flames with eyes haunted by memories I would never know. I wondered what loss had driven him so far into the snow, what battles he had fought that left him carrying silence like a second skin. And I wondered why fate had brought him to me. When the storm finally broke, sunlight spilled over a world buried in white. The air glittered with ice, and for the first time in days, the sky stretched wide and blue. That morning, I woke to find him standing at the door, bow slung over his shoulder, ready to leave. My heart clenched tighter than I expected. "You saved us," I said softly, clutching my son to my chest. "I'll never forget you." He met my gaze, and for a long moment, the silence between us carried more than words ever could. His eyes lingered on the baby, then on me. A storm of unspoken things passed between us: gratitude, respect, something deeper neither of us dared to name. Finally, he said, "Strong woman. Strong mother." Then, after a pause, "Good life." And with that, he stepped out into the snow, his figure shrinking against the endless horizon. I stood at the threshold, tears stinging my eyes, watching until he was gone. Years have passed since that night. My son has grown tall, with his father's steady hands and my stubborn heart. James never returned from that storm. Whether he lost his way or was claimed by the cold, I'll never know. But when I tell my boy the story of his birth, I tell him of the night the Tempest tried to take us, and of the stranger who carried us through. I tell him of Tayan, the lone Apache whose courage and kindness gave me the strength to bring new life into a world of chaos. And sometimes, when the wind howls through the prairie and snow drifts high against the cabin walls, I close my eyes and feel that night all over again: the fire's warmth, the storm's fury, and the quiet, steadfast presence of the man who saved us.